Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Wolfman from 2025, directed by Leigh Whannell, who a couple years ago directed the Invisible Man remake, reboot, reimagining, also somewhat responsible for the Saw franchise, among other things. Yeah, this movie is an interesting reimagining of the Wolfman story. But before we get into that, remind you guys to please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on all my socials, Instagram, follow me on Letterboxd. All those links will be in the description below. Check out my other reviews from last year. Yeah. So with that being said, let's get into the video. So the Wolfman tells a story about a young man who early on in his life, they are living up in the state of Oregon he lives up in the state of Oregon with his dad, and around the area there's like this disease where people, they get infected and they become very feral and wild, almost, it's like cabin fever-esque, and it's known amongst the locals. But his dad, when he's young, his dad is trying to tell him, is like, you gotta be aware, you gotta be, you gotta be careful what you do around here and all this stuff. And we flash forward a few years, and now he's grown with a family. He's got a daughter and a wife, and after they get the news that his dad has passed away, they go back to the local, his family farm, and try to shows his family where he grew up and everything, but things take a turn for the worst. And the wolf feral-like creature is back now stalking his family. And one thing I will say about it is Leigh Whannell, he came a long way from doing Saw and stuff like that. Very synonymous with like this new age editing and filmography and everything, and with stuff like Invisible Man, which I haven't seen yet, so I don't know if that one's good, but I've heard people say a lot of good things about it. But I have heard or watched other stuff in his movies, and he uses this like very suspenseful, very dynamic filmmaking, and he brings that here. You have this, this character, this idea of what the character should be in the story, and it's okay to do a reimagining to change the story details and like the names or whatever, but how is it reflect on the original? Because if you've seen the original Wolfman and the Invisible Man, very different movies, very different type of acting, very different type of story, and so like I said, that one had the decent praise. But as far as this one goes, if you watch the original, which I have seen the original Wolfman movie, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and Claude Rains, of all people, it's very, European, very, sound stage. Like, this came out in the 1940s, so very limited on what they could do. But that Wolfman character, that design is iconic, and he's so synonymous with that character. They tried to do a remake of it back in 2012, I think, or 2010. I think 2010. They tried to do a remake of it with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, which, despite the use of CGI, which they do use some CGI here, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. They used a lot of CGI, which I think because the studio went over budget with the practical effects, they had to resort to using CGI, and it dates the movie for me. It feels like it dates the movie, pre like 2010s era, like, they're trying to like retweak the CGI. Like, CGI gotten a lot better, at the later part of the 2010s, but the early 2010s, it was some rough stuff. Takes this story or the idea of the Wolfman and kind of, makes it a suspense, isolated thriller. Like, you have this opening scene of the movie where you get the dad and the son. They're talking about, being, watching out, even though the place that they are in, Oregon, which Oregon is very beautiful in some parts, but they're out in the woods, it's dangerous. They got bears, wild animals and stuff like that. And so he's trying to tell him, like, hey, you need to be aware of all this stuff when he's a little kid. And we see, the looming threat of this creature early on, but we don't quite see it, yet. We see just quick glimpses of it, and which I like. That kind of set up the story. I will say, if you're hearing sensitive, I'm sure you probably don't go to movies that often, but if you are hearing sensitive, like, this movie does one of those things that like these horror movies do, is they make everything really, really quiet, and then noise everywhere. Like, it's like really quiet, then really quiet, then really, really loud. And I hate when movies do that, because it kind of a cheap scare, you know. It's like, get your heart pumping again, but it doesn't feel earned, you know what I mean? It just feels like we're using the sound editing, and the sound mixing in this is actually really good. You know, it feels like this is somebody who's been doing this for a long time, should feel like they shouldn't have to be able to do the cheap scares and stuff like that, or the cheap, you know, sound cues and stuff like that. That was just like, ooh, get you a quick jolt, and that's it. But as far as the rest of the movie goes, I think the practical effects are good, although it feels like it's more realistic. It's not trying to copy the 2010 one or the original one, but it feels like it's more like, it's supposed to be like this disease that, like, you know, it brings out that animalistic side in you. It brings out your persona, if you will. That I think I like the fact that they did use the practical effects. I think there are some enhancements with CGI, but for the most part, you got, you know, and for the few people who are watching this point on, I'm going to be doing spoilers, so you've been warned. So if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. But this is spoilers right here. But you have two wolves in the movie. You have the dad, who becomes the wolf when the son's trying to find him. They think he's dead because they get a death certificate, and they think he's dead, and so they get attacked by this wolf, and they have to go hide in this family, as this son's, the dad's home. They have to go hide in his home. They find out that that's his dad, so his dad gets turned into a wolf, and then the husband of this family, Blake, he gets turned into a wolf as well. And we see Blake's transition from, you know, the dad, and we see it gradually. Like, you see his eyes, he starts sweaty, his hair gets all wet, and you see the cheeks change, and like the bubble, like his face is kind of like bubbling up, and you see the hair start to grow and everything. And then there's some parts where his nails are falling out, which was in the trailer. That's not a spoiler or anything, but you see this gradual transformation, which I thought was really nice. They didn't just do it in like, oh, it's like in, like, you see him like turn into like this wolf in like a shadow, and then they just never show the wolf makeup. Like, you see his transformation gradually through the film, and you see it in better shots than others. And I like that they didn't, because the dad is pretty much the main focus of the story and the family. And I'm glad the dad, because he had such like somewhat of a traumatic past and issues with his father, that they didn't try to make him more like abusive or anything like that. They made him very loving, and they actually wrote his character to be like, you know, he's trying to be this protector, but he has to be, you know, tries to be stern, but he doesn't want to be too overbearing with his daughter and everything. And it's actually coming between him and his wife, but he's not like, he's like this abusive or malicious parental figure. He's this protective, but it comes at a cost with his family and his relationship. And so that's why they try to go back to where he's living, or where he used to live, and reconcile with his family. Ultimately, we don't really get that part, but that's why they're going to this location. And for the most part, everybody's written fine. You know, the only thing I would have to say is his wife is very like, because they run into one of Blake's people he used to know way back in the day, and he's a hunter, because they talk about how, you know, they hunt and it's the woods and everything, and he's got a gun, and his wife's like, he's got a gun, don't let him in the car, just drive away. It's like, she's worried, but it feels like for like no reason. Like in that particular scene, he's just somebody she's unfamiliar with. What do you call it? He's not like giving off any weird vibes. I think they try to make it that way, but he's not like, he's just trying to help the family, and she's wanting to be all, you know, she's wanting to be all weird about it. And so for a while there, her character was like basically Miss Negative, like anything the dad would do, she'd be against. And so I think I think in that regards, I mean, it's fine, but then her character kind of changes after a while. She's very hesitant when it comes to the final bit of the movie. She's very hesitant on doing what she needs to do because, you know, she loves her husband, but, you know, it's like I said, it's going to cost her, you know, it's going to cost dearly for their family. And so she comes around, but at the early parts of the movie, she's very, you know, Miss Negative, you know, and I was like, oh no, is she going to be one of those characters that's like difficult and causes the family to basically, you know, killed, essentially. My main negative with the movie is the lighting aspect. Like, it's supposed to be natural, you know, it's supposed to be dark. Like, they're in the middle of the night when they go visit this home and everything, and it's middle of the night, and so it's dark. You know, it's supposed to be dark throughout the whole movie, and you can see that in the trailer, and that was what I was kind of worried about, is like, it feels like it's like this suspense thriller, you know, there's something on the loose out there and they're trying to hide in this house, and it does that very well, but it's so dark and it's so dim, and there's some parts where they do find power and it is light, but it's like, it's not like how you would like turn all the lights on in the house. Like, they have very few lighting in this house, and they explain that in a scene early on before the incident. And so there's like hardly any light in this house, but there is a cool effect where you can see, like, it's dark, the werewolf, when you start turning into this wolf-like creature, you can start seeing like this blue that you can see more in the dark, and has like this weird blue, like, I don't know, say electrical neon like type effect, and you can kind of see in the dark. And there's one cool scene in the barn that I won't talk about here, that's actually pretty fun, but they show that effect, and it's like, oh, you know, it's like it's like, it's really good. You should, yeah, that part was actually kind of entertaining. But for me, it was like so dark, and there wasn't a whole lot of things that was like getting my attention. Like, the movie's like very dark and very quiet because they're trying to be, you know, trying to hide, and so I don't know, I just feel like there were some parts where it would get so quiet where I would like, but I found it hard to like keep my eyes open. My eyes closed, and then the loud noise would come on, and I'd open my eyes, and so hard to stay interested. But then there were some parts where it'd be like a lot of action and whatever, and it'd be interesting, but most of it is just, you know, hiding, talking, being quiet in a dark environment. It's hard to see. You're in a dark theater, even in a screen that's, you know, 30-40 feet wide, you know, it's hard to see. But really, that's kind of my main complaint. It's pretty quick movie if you're invested, but if you have a hard time staying awake in theater, this is not one of those movies where you want to go to, because you'll fall asleep for sure. So but yeah, it's not a terrible movie. Like, I would say there's some effort put into it. It's a reimagining of a classic story. They don't, at least not the ones that I picked up on, but I don't think they harken back to that original movie. Like, I don't think there was characters named, like, you know, it was like, this person's named Larry Talbot or something like that. That's what I thought they were going to do. I didn't really look up any of the characters and stuff like that. I kind of went into this movie pretty much blind, but I've been seeing this trailer for months because I've been going to the theaters and watching movies, so I've been seeing this trailer for a while. But yeah, they, at least not the ones that I picked up on, I don't think they really harken back to the original one. So it tries to very much do its own thing with its own characters and its own story, and I appreciate that. But it's probably not something I would watch again. I mean, maybe if I'm doing a reaction of Leigh Whannell movies or watching stuff that he's directed, maybe. But as far as that goes, I don't think I would ever watch this movie again. And yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Probably about a 3.5 stars. There's merit to it, but it's not something I would enjoy. Yeah, so but if you've seen it, let me know what your thoughts are on the movie in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.